You're listening to News Talk Sauga 960. Also streaming live on sauga960am.ca.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Sauga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is a show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And we have, as always, a jam-packed show for you this evening, as we have a lot to theorize about when it comes to the week that was here on today's show. First and foremost, I want to give a huge shout out to Bianca for winning the U.S. Open. So let's just get that out of the way. Super proud that we have somebody here in Peel bringing home another chip. It's been a summer of chips here in the GTA, including the Raptors win a few months ago. So shout outs to Bianca. And, we're not going to be theorizing about Bianca because there's nothing to theorize about because she absolutely killed it. But we are going to theorize about Forever 21 filing for bankruptcy. Yes, Forever 21 announced a few weeks ago that it's currently looking at bankruptcy options. And I thought it'd be fascinating to talk about this on the show because if you are familiar with Forever 21, you know that retailer is a huge player when it comes to the world of fast fashion. And if you don't know what fast fashion is, it's simply fashion that is bought, that's usually less quality, very trendy, but it's meant to be worn only for a few wears, and then it's usually tossed away or donated. And it's interesting to see Forever 21 go through this, and we are definitely going to be theorizing about that. And then this coming Tuesday, we are expecting a brand new announcement as it pertains to a new iPhone. Yes, the iPhone 11 is rumored to be announced by Apple this coming Tuesday. Usually when Apple does these big events, there's a lot of hype online. Usually people are live streaming these events off the Apple website. And if you ask me, someone who is a primary Apple user, I'm not really sensing a lot of hype regarding this upcoming launch. Or maybe it is just me, but I don't know. And I want to pick the brains of two of my guests that will be joining me a little later on. We have Nikita Brown, who is the managing editor of the Bramptonist, a very popular publication that highlights all things Brampton within the Flower City. And then we're also going to be joined by another good friend of mine, somebody who just came back from a summer abroad studying in Paris, actually, or I think in France. He used to be part of a collective, or he might still be. I have no idea. Maybe we can ask him on the air. It's called Brampton Says, which was a fantastic outlet showcasing different Bramptonians and how they live it up in the mainstream. And he's going to be joining me here today as well, and his name is Vijai Kumar. So we're going to have Nikita and Vijay theorizing with me about Forever 21 and the iPhone. And then a little later, we're going to be joined by a high school student turned author, Imaan Gill. Imaan is somebody who's currently looking to raise money for a Kickstarter campaign involving a book that he's trying to write called the Browntown Diaries. So I thought it'd be great, number one, to showcase this young author and this wonderful initiative of him turning to crowdfunding to make his dream a reality. And I thought it'd be fantastic to ask him about Browntown Diaries and what this concept is all about. So we're going to do that a little later on the show. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by Nikita Brown and Vijai Kumar here on New Theory Radio, and we are going to talk Forever 21 and the new iPhone here on News Talk Sauga 960 AM. And we are back here on New Theory Radio, live on News Talk Sauga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show again where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And it's about that time where we start theorizing. So I'm so honored to be joined by two awesome individuals as we theorize about Forever 21 and a new iPhone that's apparently being released on Tuesday. I'll introduce the first person actually in front of me. She is the managing editor and creator creator of a awesome website that really puts the city of Brampton on. It is the Bramptonist. It is Nikita Brown. Nikita, thanks so much for finally coming to Sauga 960.
Thank you for having me and for inviting me until I finally showed up.
Yeah, I know. And I know Ryan Gertrand's probably listened to this, probably cursing away, because I think he's been trying to get you on his show for a while.
Please forgive me, Ryan. I promise I'll come on your show too.
So in demand. And that's actually a great way to describe the next individual beside me. He is, would you say, like, are you formally from Brampton Says, or is that still a thing?
I would say I'm formally from Brampton.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's breaking news here on radio. It is, and he just came from studying abroad, doing his master's, but he is a Bramptonite, full in, full out, and he's here to talk some stuff with me. It is Vijai Kumar, aka the Kumar Effect.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime, man. It's been long overdue. I was super excited to get the both of you guys in a room, because you guys, for the longest time and still currently, we're pretty much the buzz of the Flower City when it comes to all things that were happening. So we're not going to be talking too much about Brampton today, but actually maybe we could touch on a little bit. Nikita, you and I had the opportunity to moderate the Vision Brampton panel that just took place on Thursday, which was fantastic, the Civic Action Forum. Before we kind of jump into the topics, what was your thoughts on the entire event?
Honestly, it was an amazing event. It was the city's first ever federal debate, and the fact that it was held and hosted and put together by 20 youth groups is pretty impressive. It was a huge turnout. It was very successful. People always sort of think like, it's going to be hosted by youth, so they might pull it off, but not really. But I think that the candidates who came were really impressed with like the caliber of the event, the types of questions that were asked. So all in all, I think it was a really, really successful event.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo what you said as well, and big shout outs to Marilyn and Sandeep and the entire team. Sandeep was actually on the weekly show earlier today. Likewise, I think it was a fantastic event, a great event to bring the youth together. This early too, like sort of in the election, we are obviously about 50 days or less than 50 days away, but I just thought it was great that they were able to get so many youth together at City Hall, 6 weeks out, which is, for me, I thought maybe you'd be a lot, like I thought they would, this type of thing would have, probably would have been more noticeable, maybe a little closer to, but 6 weeks out, it's pretty sick.
Absolutely. They smashed it. It was such a good event, and it really sets the tone for what the election season is going to be like in Brampton. So, kudos to them for setting that precedent pretty early on. So,
I'm going to try to segue into our first topic, but how many youth in attendance do you think were wearing Forever 21?
Let's go with 10%. 10%? 10%.
Okay, Vijay, are you currently wearing Forever 21 as you sit in the studio?
Nothing that is currently on my body is from Forever 21, unfortunately.
Wow. So I really feel like it's because of the 10% or the 90% at Vision Brampton that wasn't wearing Forever 21, and Vijay not wearing Forever 21 is probably the prime reason why they're going bankrupt right now.
I'm part of the 90%.
But let's just get right into it. News came out a few weeks ago that Forever 21 was getting ready to file for bankruptcy. The retailer looks to have been struggling with its finances for a while, and even Yahoo Canada chimed in saying that it might be because of e-commerce and just the shift in regards to people not going to malls anymore to buy clothes. But I want to talk about this because for me, Forever 21 was in this niche of fast fashion where, if there was something you wanted to buy that was trendy but you didn't want to spend a lot of money, you would go to a Forever 21 or an H&M or maybe even that nowadays a Uniqlo to go buy it. But now that they're struggling and they seem to be filing for bankruptcy, what's your theory on sort of this trend, and is it disappearing? Maybe Vijay, will begin with you.
Yeah, so I think with Forever 21, I think everyone has 20/20 vision in retrospect. So, there could be particular financial decisions made in that organization that probably led to the situation it's currently facing right now. But, for a while, I've always struggled to understand what Forever 21 even was in terms of a brand. I guess Forever 21 and Forever Youthful or something. I don't know. But, e-commerce and online shopping, all of that, the empowerment of smaller brands and all of that probably plays a huge role. But why isn't it happening to H&M? Why isn't it happening to Zara, Uniqlo? I think if you're going to go the conventional brick and mortar route, you have to sort of represent something meaningful and kind of have a distinct identity. Zara, for example, is still very much in this fast fashion world, but it kind of is a bit more elegant than an H&M. And, Forever 21 kind of struggled with that identity, I think.
Yeah, I've actually had situations, and I don't go to Forever 21 anymore, but when I used to, I'd say like 6 or 7 years back, I've had clothes that I've worn after one wear that just simply tear. And those have been jeans, those have been hoodies, those have been things I put in the wash and they just get completely ruined. And I washed it according to what's on the label. It's just the quality to me just never really was there. Nikita, what was your thoughts on Forever 21?
Yeah, I think I have there's a few reasons why I think they're going under. One, their user experience sucks in their stores.
Really,
It's a giant store, and half the time you can't find what you're looking for. It's just so big. There's a plethora of items, and half the time you're like, where do I even look? It's just confusing and horrible. Two, I think consumers are now spoiled for choice, right? There are so many places that do like 2-day shipping, and you can hop on, you can get whatever you want. It's at your house, and if you want, you can return it back to the store. Forever 21, their return policy is not very good. I don't think you can return things. You have to take a store credit. So I think, for me as a consumer, someone who shops regularly and online a lot, I'm always looking for a place, especially if I'm shopping online, that I can make sure that I can return to 100%, because I'm not trying clothes on. I'm not able to see how it looks. And then the other thing, too, I think that they have struggled, like Vijay said, with their identity. Like, what is Forever 21? I don't even really, there's nothing that really comes to mind when I think of the brand.
Yeah, and I think you actually brought up a good point about the in-store, because from a guy's perspective, I've seen Forever 21s that have like a corner guy section, then they've gone down to a wall, and then they've gone down to completely not having a guy section at all. And for me, when it comes to a lot of places like Uniqlo and H&M, and when I'm going there with my wife, it adds to the shopping experience if we both can sort of split up and do our thing versus one of us having to wait for the other person and pretty much holding bags the entire time. Like, I just felt like they never strategically thought about the shopping experience and who was really going there. And like, identity seems to be coming up a lot here.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen Forever 21 have a lot of scrutiny in the past. I remember once, I think they stole Frank Ocean's font that he had created for his Blonde album. And Frank Ocean literally just took a photo, posted on Instagram, and then hashtag cease and desist.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they were just making irrational moves.
I think they've had a bad rap too for stealing designs from designers, from like
100%.
Small designers and stuff like that too. So it's not a good look.
But isn't that just fast fashion in general though? Like, are we like? Is it because to me, I think fast fashion is really boils down to the fact that if we can't afford the designer names, you almost try to go for the knockoff. But I think that's what the role. I think that was the role that Forever 21 was trying to play. I don't know, Vijay. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference, obviously, with. I remember there's this one case of like this jean jacket, and there was this like very distinct iconography on it that you couldn't really mistake for anything else. Whereas an H&M is like, okay, a striped white tee looks like Comme des Garçons. Like it sort of like resembles it, but all out. There's a proper way to steal. Like I go back to Tarantino. He says all of his movies are a reference to something. Every scene. If it's blatant stealing, you can tell you have this gut reaction to it. But if it's inspired by sort of other stylistic choices out there, I think that's a different thing.
Yeah, and that's a good point you bring up, because I've walked into Forever 21s and I've seen them rip off Supreme, and I've seen them rip off old 90s brands trying to get that plaid in, and with the baggy hoodies and all that. And to me, as a shopper, it doesn't even entice me to want to buy. It's more so like an insult to my intelligence, right? It's like, why would I want to spend $10 on something when I'd just rather fork up the $90 for something that's legit, where it's probably going to last me a lot longer.
Yeah, and I think we live in such a visible society now where everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on Snapchat, and brands do kind of matter. So people do kind of reach for those name brands now. But I think quality is also a big part of it too. Like you were saying, Nav, like stuff from there just falls apart, and there are better options at similar price points where you can get stuff that doesn't fall apart in a week or a month.
So do both of you find now that when it comes to your purchasing behaviors that you are sort of opting to buy something a bit more expensive because you're getting more value out of it, or does fast fashion still play a role in your purchases?
I mean, for me, fast fashion still plays a huge role, and I think that probably explains to some extent the success of Uniqlo, because it's minimalist and it doesn't try to replicate the sort of ostentatious brand brands like Gucci or anything like that.
Yeah, it's very basics.
Exactly, yeah. And I think a lot of people are opting for that style because it doesn't look like it's replicating anything else. It just, you can get something that's pretty inexpensive that looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm. What, Nikita?
Yeah, I would say I'm a lot more strategic about my wardrobe now. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit older and not necessarily within that Forever 21 demographic, because I'm not 21.
Wait, you're not Forever 21?
But I'm a lot more strategic about what I buy and careful about what I buy, and I'm very much quality over quantity, and that's partly because I have a tiny closet now, so I got to be choosy. So yeah, it definitely for me quality over quantity, and of course making sure that pieces can transcend different looks and seasons, and not just be for a couple months and then I throw it out.
It's a fascinating time in fashion, specifically for this millennial demographic, because you have one instance where you have exclusives that drop when it comes to the sneaker world, or when it comes to even just pieces that are designed by rappers or artists or other types of people. Mm-hmm. And then you have the other realm where it's okay, the fast fashion route. I see Kanye wearing this hoodie. I obviously can't afford the big dollars that he's paying, so I'm going to get the replica. And I find that I've seen people wear $10 Forever 21 jeans with a pair of Yeezys, and it's just, to me, it's very contradictory regarding what they're trying to do. Right. Again, I'm not trying to judge anybody, but it's just funny to see the behavior there.
Yeah, and I think also in addition to that, you see that contrast, but also you have this rise of local fashion artists. Because the internet has empowered, of course, these big time rappers and all of that, but it's also empowered people with cool designs who kind of have their products promoted through word of mouth. And I've bought a lot of stuff through Instagram ads or stuff on my Discover page because it looked cool. And I think that's a really it's an empowering time to sort of be a fashion designer and to sort of have your products sort of being positioned online.
Yeah, more and more people are buying local, I'm finding, especially when it comes to the Instagram age that we all live in. To your point, when I see something really cool and I find out that, hey, this is available in downtown Toronto or at a local vendor in Mississauga, I'd rather go out and support versus try to buy something mainstream. Nikita, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think people are so largely influenced by influencers now, too. You see so many influencers starting their own brands, especially in the fitness world. Mm-hmm. They just kind of come up with their own stuff and they're hustling and selling it. And, Forever 21 just burned a huge influencer, Ariana Grande.
Really?
Yeah, so they're being sued for $10 million by her because they initially were in talks to hire her to be the face of one of their lines. And then they decided not to, but they hired her lookalike of her. So she's now, she's suing them.
So insult to injury.
Exactly. And it's back to it doesn't look good for their brand.
It's one thing to have failed negotiations, but it's another thing to actually go out and find a replica. It's almost like their fashion strategy. It's literally that. It's if we can't get the real thing, we're just going to try to source a fake one.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I think this signals the not good things for them in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they disappear.
You mentioned earlier that you buy a lot online. How often are you going to a mall?
I usually go to the mall to return the things I don't want that I bought online.
So when you do that, do you find yourself popping into more stores or what?
Honestly, not often. I think I now know where I shop. I've got a good idea of what my size is like for, those places. So I'll look online. I've got an email alert set up so I know when they're having the best deals. That's just what it is. And a lot of retailers have apps now. So I'm usually on those, keeping an eye on things that I want, bookmarking them, and then usually the shopping process happens online. I'll go into a store if they don't have it in stock. That's about it.
It's I find a lot of malls and specifically within the Peel region. I got to go to Square One last week, and I saw what they've done with the food district and obviously with Rec Room there. It's more of an experience that's adding to the shopping experience that's already there. But I went to Shoppers World about 2 weeks ago, and I still don't know how they're keeping the lights on.
I wouldn't know either. And funny that you asked me how often I've been to the mall recently. I've actually been to Square One 3 times in the last month, and it's strictly for that food district and some of the new things that they have going on, not for shopping. So yeah, Shoppers World, don't know how it, honestly, it's like a mythical unicorn because that place should be closed for all intents and purposes, but it's still open.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because I remember as a kid going to Shoppers World, and literally the Jumbo Video was there. Some Pops and I used to go to Jumbo Video, get the free popcorn. Never used to rent a movie, but then we go inside. I remember having fun at the arcade at Shoppers World. It was insane. And then I remember like Taco Bell used to have like Taco Tuesdays, so like my buddy and I after like school during high school days would go and get Taco Tuesdays. I went there like last week, and that same Taco Bell was there. The same lady that worked there when I was in high school is still there.
The mall still looks the exact same.
It looks the exact same, and I remember just feeling like a part of my childhood was in pain, because again it's been worn down, and it just I don't know, like I find that malls in general, like unless you're really trying to do things differently, like a Square One, what role are you really playing nowadays?
That's one thing I appreciate about Stranger Things season 3 is that they brought back this idea of a mall as a place to just congregate with your friends and just hang out, because I think that's what it was for me. That's what a mall was for me.
Yeah.
And if you go to, I haven't been to Shoppers World in years, so I mean I'd probably go back. But I was at BCC a few weeks ago, and it was all high school students, and I think that's probably the primary demographic now. I don't know. I still like going to physical stores because I like trying things on.
Me too.
But we'll see.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned Stranger Things and how they really kicked it old school by, emphasizing a lot of what happened during that season in a mall, spoiler alert. But I found it fascinating that when they opened a Scoops Ahoy in Woodbine Center, like, I thought that was kind of cool, because Woodbine Center was a part of my childhood, too. Yeah. And I just thought, because Woodbine Center is similar to a Shoppers World in regards to the way that it's currently looks and the way that it is. The Hudson Bay that's at Woodbine Center does have some gems, though. I do recommend going there if you want to rummage through inventory. But the fact that Stranger Things decided to open up a Scoops Ahoy in that fantasy fair, I thought was a cool throwback.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have yet to check it out, but I think that's super like in this age of like memes and internet sensation, virality and all that, it's just like super meta, and like I love it. And we should do more of that.
Yeah, Nikita, do you have a lot on the Bramptonist? Do you have a lot of malls hitting you up just for opportunities to collaborate? I know you've done stuff with BCC in the past. BCC has changed quite a bit since over the last few years. But like when you talk to the malls and when they're looking to do collaborations, what's some of the things that they're focusing on?
Honestly, it's primarily to drive traffic to their like one-off events and their special things, because that's how they get most of their traffic now. It seems like, Christmas time when they're doing like their pet and Santa photos and that kind of stuff. It's not really to drive traffic to the mall in general. Like BCC is a little bit different. They're a little bit up with their game. They've got an app and stuff like that, so we can actively promote that on the regular. But when it comes to like the smaller malls like Shoppers World, and especially, they're looking at those one-off events and things that bring traffic into the mall. Because I like you said, Vijay, it's very much, when I was in high school, that's what my friends and I would do. We'd go hang out at the food court, maybe go into some stores, probably not spend any money because we didn't have any. So I can't imagine that it's bringing them tons of money having the high school crowd there. I don't know. I don't know what this signals for malls. I don't feel like it's good. My gut feeling is that it's not good unless they can be really innovative and smart. Like BCC, they partner with like ethnic communities and different people to host events regularly. So that's really good. So a place to congregate. That's really, they should stick to that for sure if they want to stay.
Shifting it back to sort of the topic around Forever 21 and fast fashion, if you're a competitor of Forever 21's, like, what are you doing that's maybe different so that you're not in the same situation? Because the retail business is a tough business right now. We've all seen it. I think we've all admitted on air right now that we shop online. But if you are an H&M or a Uniqlo, do you look at Forever 21 as being, okay, they were doing this, I need to steer away from that? Or do you just continue to stay in your lane and hope for the best?
I mean, I think, Uniqlo, H&M, Zara, I think they're in a pretty good position, and I think they're doing what they can, and they're doing things right in the sense that I have a much better experience when I go to Uniqlo and I know where things are, and it's just seamless. It's a seamless experience. Totally. And they also have that like online element too. It's sort of like compatible with their brick and mortar identity and existence. If as Nikita said, when I order something online, or rather if I go in store and they don't have like the right pant size, I order it online, but I still buy the jacket, and just like it's just compatible.
Yeah. I know it's definitely a full integrated experience that you can get when you go to a store like that. It's also fascinating when you think about, sorry, this just came to my mind, when we think about online retailers, the fact that Casper now actually has some brick and mortar stores too.
Yeah, I think that the experience has to be seamless. Like when I think about H&M, it's like most of their stores are about the same size as a Forever 21 store, but I never feel overwhelmed when I go there. I know where everything is. If I were to go on Forever 21 right now on their website and say, hey, I'd want to buy this dress in store, and I go to the store, it'd be a disaster and I would never find that dress. And I'd ask an associate and they probably wouldn't know either. So it's just, there's a huge disconnect, and I think that that's what irks me about there. And that's what will continue to be a challenge, because people are looking for both. Like, we want options.
Definitely.
What is, before we conclude this segment, what is your go-to store right now? I'm going to guess, Vijay, yours is Uniqlo.
Yeah, I love Uniqlo. I mean, either Uniqlo, H&M is always, it's always like I bought pretty much like half of this outfit from H&M.
Swag.
And I'm a big fan of Simon's, actually, at Square One, so... Yeah.
Actually, I feel like we can do like an entire show on Simon's, because I've been to the Simon's in Montreal where it's like super nice. I like the layout. The Simon's in Square One is nice. I just have never seen it busy. Like, I've never seen it busy, which kind of worries me a little bit, because it is a Canadian retailer. You do want to see it succeed. But I've never been to a Simon's and been like, oh my God, it's so busy. And trust me, like, I'm not someone that wants to be in a busy area. Like, I do like it when I could spend my time and shop. But then I'm wondering, like, are people actually coming here? I don't know. Nikita?
Yeah, the one at Square One's often just like a place for people to walk through once they've parked, unfortunately. But I like Simon's too. I think in my older age, I make myself sound so ancient, but I'm not.
Oh
I'm starting to shop more at like Simon's, Nordstrom, and like Hudson's Bay. But I will say, like, Dynamite, RW & Co., those are still pretty solid go-tos. So fast fashion, yes, but a little bit more on the higher end side, because obviously quality is important to me.
Amazing. So I think we can all agree that we're not surprised by Forever 21 going bankrupt. Sorry, anyone who likes Forever 21.
Not after Ariana goes through with her lawsuit.
That's insane, because Ariana Grande has a lot of clout right now. So I think if you're going to war with Ariana Grande, I think this is sort of inevitable that you're going to be seeing. But
honestly, after this conversation, I'm surprised they even lasted this long.
Actually, our lovely station manager, Jyoti Bandhan, wanted to make a note that Aritzia is a fantastic store. And I think, Nikita, you were agreeing?
I agree. I totally forgot about Aritzia, but like, they're solid. They're definitely solid.
That's definitely your jam. I love it. But, just kind of on the same realm of retail, who here has an iPhone? Anybody?
I do.
Okay, so our photographer, Amit, aka Colorblind Photography, does. Vijay, you don't?
No, never.
Okay, so you're probably not looking forward. Oh, Jyoti, do you have an iPhone as well? She does. Jyoti has an iPhone. I think Ameek from Big Talk does not have an iPhone. So Ameek and Vijay are probably the same. Apple's doing a gigantic announcement on Tuesday. They are more than likely going to be talking about the iPhone 11. And, I think we might have another panelist here joining us, doing a bit of a run-in in a few seconds. But yes, they're doing a launch, a big event. All signs seem to be pointing to this new iPhone. I don't know, like, I've been an Apple guy pretty much for a majority of my life. Like, I remember probably around my MBAs when I made the switch to go fully Apple, when I had the Apple phone, had my MacBook. I've had iPads in the past in previous jobs. I've always been a Mac guy. But lately, I've had the same iPhone now for 2 years. Before that, I was switching my phone like every year, trying to sell it, trying to upgrade it. Now I just don't care. Like, I feel like now I'm not too enamored by what's going on when it comes to these launches. And I'm a total Apple nerd, and obviously, Vijay, you're not affected by it because you're not an Apple guy. But Nikita, are you excited about this new iPhone? Do you plan on getting it? I don't know.
Yeah, simple answer, no. I'm the same way. I've had multiple iPhones, multiple MacBooks, iPads, all sorts of stuff. Apple owns my life, basically, let's just be honest, and all my files. But I'm not, it's just noise at this point. I feel like every year they come out and they're like, this is going to be a big new launch and this is so exciting, but it's never anything that's like groundbreaking, in my opinion. I'm probably not going to get this new phone, and maybe it's, again, my older age and more mature age, but I'm just like not in that rat race anymore of wanting like the newest thing. I'm kind of like, I'm good. My phone still works.
I just love when you talk about older age, because I'm older than you. So the fact that you feel like you're old makes you feel like a grandpa. But someone who's also not old, and he's doing a bit of a run-in here on the show. He is from Big Talk, which you can hear each and every Saturdays. It is our good friend Ameek Singh. Ameek, thanks so much for joining us here on New 3 Radio.
Wow, man. I feel like, I should be doing something better with my life, but Androids get a bad rap, but the new lineup of even if you just look at this new Xiaomi, I know it's a like very obscure brand to like a lot of the Apple people, but Xiaomi's like new lineup with the K20 Pro and stuff, and what they've done in terms of like the $400-$500 price mark, it's incredible. You get an in fingerprint scanner.
Wow.
You're getting quad camera in the back, 48 megapixel camera. Now they've gone to 68 megapixel camera. It's been like 4 months of the type of leaps and bounds that they've made in the same price range, and now we're kind of, I can't justify $1,000 phone. Even Samsung parts.
So wait, is this the brand of phone that a lot of people are buying, but they're not buying from Canada? They're getting it shipped from
Yes, this
Asia?
is a lot of China AliExpress business
really?
going on.
Really?
A lot of Alibaba, AliExpress type of stuff, but it is top of the line sort of parts. But they've done it in a very Asian way where they take the best of so they'll take the best Sony sensor, they'll take the best Samsung AMOLED display, they'll take the best Qualcomm processor, and kind of put everything together at a very like rock bottom price. So the immigrant instincts, the Indian instincts, I'm like, yo, this is the great value for money. I can't say no to this. I can't justify $1,000 phone, and that's where I'm at with technology now. Because to be honest, like even if like a Motorola or even a Nokia, they're so competitive in terms of the features they're offering. Like you can't compare it. Yes, there's a cachet to have an Apple phone, but if you're talking just in terms of productivity, I think Android's up in there with Apple there too.
So what's that brand called again? The one you just talked about? Xiaomi. So that sounds like the IPTV of iPhones.
It is.
What are your thoughts, Vijay?
I was thinking ShamWow.
ShamWow, yeah.
Ameek is his name? Ameek?
Yeah.
He knows a lot about phones. I respect that. That's very good. I don't know. I've never been enamored with Apple. I don't really like MacBooks and the iPhone. While I respect its role in defining modern smartphones, I just don't like the closeness of it, the closed system. But I think generally about smartphones, I think it's been going on for a few years now where at least maybe to Ameek it's a little different, but to the general populace who doesn't know a lot about technology like myself, nothing's impressive anymore. Like very little is impressive. Yeah. Like you can have like what is it like triple lens cameras and like end-to-end screens and all of that, and it just seems like a modest upgrade or a modest modification on an already very impressive technology. And I think that's why there's not a lot of hype with this new iPhone, because how many times are they going to reinvent the wheel?
Well, especially because a lot of rumors are saying that there isn't going to be any drastic changes. And I forgot what it was. I think it was when the iPhone started to release the S versions of their iPhones is when I started to feel like they were copping out a little bit regarding, this release is really blown out of proportion. There really isn't much of a difference here, and there really isn't a reason why I should be buying that. Nikita?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, call me when you have something super groundbreaking to show. Otherwise, it's just noise and it's just whatever. And it's kind of a little bit annoying almost, actually. Because it's like, you don't have anything to deliver that's like going to blow my mind or change my life, really. So like, let's stop fronting.
Well, and that's the thing too, because like I always thought that the next phone, because of holographic technology, like I'm still waiting for a phone to project holographically and you just simply, I don't know, have some type of control where you can control it when it's being projected somewhere. Like I haven't seen that. Like I don't know, like I feel to everyone's point, like there's nothing out there that I'm like, oh my god, this is insane. And also, maybe this is just the sort of the conspiracy theorist in me, but I'm also a little scared with some of the facial recognition technology and all of that's taking place, and all of the data that's being captured by phones. I think that's more Ameek's alley when it comes to some of those conspiracy theories. Ameek, what do you think?
I think definitely, if you look at a brand like Huawei, for example, right? It has made incredible leaps and bounds in terms of technology it's putting in the phone, just because they're trying to compete with Apple. But once they got hit with the sanctions and there was like a privacy concerns, a lot of people started reevaluating their sort of partnership with a piece of technology that has all their information, because we live in an age now, if somebody doesn't like you, it doesn't take that much work for them to figure out how to mess with you a little bit.
Oh, exactly.
And
exactly.
So if we're having like a one-upmanship with US and China, so pretty much all the U.S. citizens that are carrying some sort of a device made in China, they're part of that whole hemisphere of this could go left for anybody. And we see that happening with celebrities, and we kind of look at our own life like, do I really want pictures of me coming up, or like conversations like is everything on like, is it like a medium of like a press release? Like everything I say has to be filtered through that lens now?
Totally.
Right? So it boggles down to like privacy. I think is the main thing that technology hasn't been able to, as much as we like to share stuff, now we're at a point of like, have we overshared? Like that's where I'm at with technology. Like are we at a point of oversharing where we're just like, I'm good with what I like, I just want to be left alone?
Well, to that point, even the concept of Apple Pay, I had to wrap my head around quite some time before I finally caved in and put my credit card on my phone.
I caved. It's just so easy.
It's so easy. It's so easy. It is. Yeah. It totally is. Like, it's awesome to not have to carry a wallet because my credit card is on my phone.
Yeah. I recently got a notification on Facebook asking for my permission to submit facial recognition.
I saw that too. That was crazy.
And I said yes. I said yes.
They already own us anyway, right?
I mean,
I
read the reasoning, and it was very convincing. It was like, oh, we'll be able to tell you if there are photos of you where you're not tagged, and you might not want photos around. And I said, yeah, that's a pretty good reason. So I just said yes, and I thought to myself, well, I watched the big hack, the great hack or whatever on Netflix recently, the whole Cambridge Analytica stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is unsettling. Data is the new oil, and I mean, we don't really consent to a lot of the information that's being shared, but I don't know, like, I don't know why I'm not more passionate about my privacy rights.
I'm in the same boat with you. I'm like, I feel like I should care more, and I should probably be, like, to Ameek's point, a little bit more cautious about the things that I like store on my phone, but I'm like, it's all on the cloud. Like, really, at the end of the day, probably, hopefully not going to screw me over one day, but it's second nature, and it's so convenient. I think that's the thing.
Because it feels good when you get a new phone and you simply just plug it into your computer, and all of your stuff from your previous phone just get downloaded onto it, and you're good to go.
Ooh, question.
Or if like, oh, whoops, I deleted a file. It's in my iCloud. Yeah. I'm good.
Headphone jack.
Oh my God, Jack.
I'm still annoyed.
You're still annoyed?
Yeah, there's been a couple times I've gone to the gym and I'm like, right, I didn't.
Is it because they want us all to wear earpods now? Is that why?
I think that's what it is. I have a Pixel 3 and it's the same thing. Yeah. I need to plug one of those like charging USB-C things to my headphone jacks, and it's just like, I get it. I think the reasoning is like to make it waterproof, we need to remove this or something, but I don't know. It's just
right. Okay. I was particularly annoyed because the year before Apple did it, I invested in a really nice pair of Bose headphones.
Same.
So then I was like, flip table.
Guess what you can use right now to use that headphone set? A Xiaomi phone.
Okay.
Oh, the Xiaomi still has the aux cord?
And IR blaster. I think that's a technology that's very underappreciated too. Is when you're lazy and you don't have a remote and you just want to change a channel, you can.
It's so funny how the headphone jack has become like the CD-ROM drive in a laptop. It just disappeared. Yeah. It's nuts because I don't know about you, but I only have one pair of wireless headphones. It's my Beats, but when they're not charged, like, it's usually kind of annoying. So
life over.
Life is over. Yeah.
I haven't yet invested in a pair of wireless headphones, but like when I get to the gym and I'm like, oh, I have no music because I forgot to bring my little, adapter thing. It drives me crazy.
Well, I remember. So I had my Beats for working out, but then I remember they were dead, so I used just my generic white Apple headphones. And there's no worse feeling of when you have those headphones in your ears and something just pulls them out.
Yep.
That is very true.
It just ruins your day. No matter what you're doing,
or you're trying to run and like the cord is in the way. So yeah, I could see some reasons why wireless might be good, but I'm still annoyed. I still love my Bose headphones.
Oh, Bose is good. Bose is really cool. What is your dream phone? If you could think of one, if you want your smartphone to do one thing, like what do you want? And like what would actually, let's say, you have zero expectations going into this announcement on Tuesday, but if Apple said, hey, this phone now has this, you're going to be like, you know what? I need to get that phone. And maybe Vijay will begin with you.
Like, what would make me get an iPhone?
Or what would be sort of that one feature that you want from your phone that you're not currently getting?
Oh man, I wanted to like predict what I want before I have to ask for it. You know what I mean? Like,
so mind recognition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's something really nice about like, oh, you're looking for burritos at 3 a.m. Here are the places
Shout out to Burrito Boys.
Yeah.
Shout out to Burrito
Exactly.
Boys. Are they
Yeah.
open tonight? We don't know.
My phone could tell me. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Nikita, what's the one feature you look for a phone, or that you really want from a phone that you haven't seen yet?
Yeah, kind of the same as Vijay. I mean, I feel like if they're already listening to me, like, why not just, like, listen to all my conversations, figure out when all my meetings are, tell me when they are, order my things for me online, like, just use all the stuff, the information you already have about me that I know you secretly have, and just, like, run my life. Because basically my phone is, like, my task manager, right? So I would love for it to, like, be able to anticipate and help me out more.
Awesome. Ameek.
About the phone,
Yeah.
I would love to not worry about waking up in the morning and looking at the notifications. Like, I just want, like, what's really important, what's actually important to me.
Or
Like,
maybe they could just read it for you. Like,
Oh.
these are the
That'd be
things-
kinda cool.
Yeah, like Siri upgraded.
Yeah.
It's like if they had an AI that would figure out like actual meaningful relationships in my life, those to show up first. Then like the coupon
true.
for like a store opening, or you know, some like random email that you're getting like, oh, I signed up for this 6 months ago, or like there's a new Freshco flyer out that like my phone decided that it's time to notify me that you could do your groceries now or something. Shout out to Loblaws too. I know. We gotta remember all at the same time, but yeah, you know, it's that's basically it in terms of like declusterifying like the information that's coming my way. That would be awesome if they could figure out how to do that.
Honestly, for me, I just want a phone that doesn't die.
Yeah.
That would also be great.
I've actually seen an influx of people lately have the portable charger, but they have the portable charger in the pocket while they have the wire attached to the phone.
Yeah.
Not
And
good luck.
it's just, you know, I get it. You know, you're trying to make sure the phone doesn't die. You need a charge, but it's just, it's funny how like charger cables are now becoming a part of people's outfits.
I just found one actually for iPhone anyway on Amazon that plugs right into the jacks. You don't even need a cord. It's freaking
Whoa,
awesome.
really?
Yeah. And that's like considered life changing. In 2019, I feel like Hollywood has lied to us. I feel like we should be more advanced than this. But
So
yeah.
it's a tiny jack. that
It's
just plugs
literally,
in.
yeah, and you literally just plug it into the bottom of your iPhone.
That is insane.
So you don't need a cord.
Wow.
It's pretty
wow.
legit.
That's really cool.
I don't know the brand, so like ask me later. But
Yeah, you know, that's actually pretty cool innovation, because I remember before the issue I used to have with my iPhone was taking photos, or my or my memory on my phone would always run out.
Right.
And then eventually, I guess I got one with larger memory, but it would just be annoying because I try to make a video, try to take a photo, and I get this random notification pop up saying you can't take any more photos. Your
Yeah.
iCloud is full, and you're just like, come on.
the message of death, I like to call it.
Yes, the message of that.
But I don't have that anymore, so I think it's smart that they've upped the size.
Yeah, me too. Me
but
too.
I probably should clean up my photos anyway.
It was like the
I don't want the message of death again.
it was like the 16 gigabyte
Yeah,
iPhone. That
what
was the
were we
worst.
doing with our lives
I don't
back
know.
then?
It was the worst. It was the worst.
I think the Note 10 has like over 200 gigs of storage or something like
That's
that.
insane. That's
crazy,
insane.
man.
That's actually part of the reason why I haven't changed my phone, is because I still have a lot of memory left on it.
Very true, actually. You're right.
I think I'm at 128 on mine, or I'm at 256, one of them. And I think I remember I got it on a really good upgrade plan, and I've had it now for 2 years. And I think the reason why I haven't changed it, because I would change it because I want higher memory,
Right.
but this phone's just been perfectly fine.
It's very true, actually. I think I'm in the same boat there, because I'm like, well, why did I get a new iPhone last time? I think it was because I was starting to feel like, oh, this is not doing it for me anymore. It doesn't have enough memory. But with the bigger memory, I think it makes a huge difference, for sure.
Would you guys ever opt in to get a non-smartphone? Or do you have to be fully
You
connected?
mean like a flip phone?
Like either a flip phone or a phone that no longer has smart capabilities? Because, you know, I've seen a lot of people now who, you know, want to disconnect.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be fully connected all the time, which is what a smartphone allows you to do.
Yeah.
Would you, in this day and age, considering everything that's going on, would you ever consider that anymore, or is that just not applicable?
I think the problem with that is, you know, if you decide to do that, you have to get off certain social media. Like your Instagram on a PC would be weird. And, you know, you have to not have a job where your email is, you know, you have to be responsive to email sort of pretty much at all hours. But I've always had this like dream that one day, when my life is figured out and I don't need to be in Facebook groups for assignments, that I could just unplug, just get off social media and get like a normal phone and just live my life sort of unencumbered by all of the distractions and meaningless notifications. I think I want that, but it's almost impractical to do so now.
It's tough. It's tough to fully disconnect. 'Cause I know people that are like, you know what? I'm going to turn I'm going to turn everything off, turn all my notifications, and just have my phone not do anything. And then 5 minutes later, they're back to turning them on because they're so eager to find out what's going on. Nikita, what are your thoughts? Obviously, your business depends on you on your phone, but would you ever consider an option?
100%. I would never do it permanently. I would say that, like, it's actually, we definitely have burnout, right? I was at the cottage a few weeks ago and I decided to not touch my phone the whole weekend. Like, my husband wasn't there with me, so literally the only time I touched my phone was to WhatsApp him, like, a few times over the weekend.
Yeah.
So I didn't go on Instagram, Facebook, nothing. And it was actually really, really nice. Like, I came back home feeling so refreshed and just good about life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But could I do it forever? No. But I do think it's good for us to, like, build in some breaks now and again. Like, it's really good for your mental health to just kind of unplug for a little while, maybe do like a social media fast or something. But permanently, I don't think I could do it. I would go crazy.
It would be kind of cool, like, because I know some iPhones are now able to, tell you when to go to sleep, when to get up, like provide recommendations based on your habits. But it would be kind of cool if the phone ends up telling you or provides you a notification to be like, hey, you're on this way too much. We're going to disable everything just so you have a bit of a break. I don't know. Maybe
for some people you might need that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know some people that I'm probably one of them because I'm always on my phone. But Ameek, what are your thoughts? Would you ever go to a non-smartphone?
No, to be honest, because there's always happening and you need to know what's happening in the world. So it would be hard for me to go. But airplane mode, shout out to airplane mode, because sometimes you can
airplane mode for sure.
Airplane mode's like, if you don't want to be disturbed, just go there, and if it's really pressing, they will find a way to get in touch with you. And I feel like that layer of scrutiny is enough if it's really pressing. But at the same time, I think we're at an age now with technology that it is part of our life. We wake up before, like, thinking if, like, we need to move our bowels, we check our phone. Yeah. That's a real thing. Like, before,
so
like, do I need to pee right now? Oh, no, I need to check my notifications to see what's happening. And, like, midway, oh, yeah, I'm a person, so I need to do something to, like, release the things that are in me building up.
It's interesting. Like, that reminds me, I came back from Paris recently, and I lived there for a few months. And one thing I noticed right off the bat was they schedule time to do nothing. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's bored anymore, and nobody just sits and thinks or reads a book, or, for example, like eating a meal. It was weird for me to just eat a meal in front of a Netflix show. When I was living over there, like, I just focused on eating my meal and nothing else. And I think, there was a lot of peace that came with just focusing on one task. And I think, a lot of, like, phones and social media, and a lot of this is designed to be addictive and to be, like, we don't say BRB anymore. You know what I mean? And I think I'm trying to build in some time to do nothing.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating for sure, because I find that it's funny, I watched a movie yesterday for TIFF called The Sound of Metal. It has Riz Ahmed in it. Fantastic movie. I don't know if it's going to be getting any Oscar buzz. I thought Riz did fantastic, but he's actually a drummer, a metal music drummer that loses his hearing. So at one point he's just dealing with complete silence, and there was one part of the movie where he ends up at a camp for deaf people, and the head supervisor told him, you never really connect with yourself until you're fully still in a moment. And to me, like, outside of just the issue that he was dealing with him losing his hearing, I also just thought about that when it comes to our daily lives. Definitely. Just how connected we are. Like, how often are we just totally, like, just with ourselves and just kind of relaxing and not looking at what's going on the Bramptonist, no offense, or like looking at, a phone CNN, or a tweet or CNN or even listening to Sauga 960. Like, how often are you just kind of zenning and just on your own? I don't know.
Yeah, it can be uncomfortable almost when you first do it, because you're like, why? I now feel the need to multitask all the time. So I never do just one thing. I'm like, Netflix is on and I'm doing other things or whatever. So, but it's so refreshing when you do. Like, I think for me, because I spend so much time on social media, it's easy for me to be like, deuces, I'm out. Like, see you at the end of the weekend. Like, it's totally fine for me, but it is hard.
Yeah, I try to do like 15 minutes of mindfulness every morning. Shout out Calm. It's an app.
I love that app.
Yeah, I need to get it. Is it really good?
Yeah. I do like it. I try to build it in too. I've been bad lately.
Yeah, there are like observable benefits that I've experienced in my life after using that. Yeah.
By the way, the debate that just happened in City Hall, great job on that.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Nikita
awesome.
was right there with me, man. We're co-hosting it. So
what was the vibe on the whole thing? I'm going to interview you here. For
you're interviewing me. Nikita and I got to touch on it earlier. I loved it, man. Big shout outs to Vision Brampton. I know Sandeep Hans was on Ryan's show earlier. I really enjoyed it. I thought just to see that many youth congregate over federal politics this early in the election was crazy. It was a packed house. Nikita obviously held it down as well.
As she always does.
Yeah, she always does. You know what? It's weird, and actually maybe weird's not the right note, but just living in Brampton and the amount of civic engagement I've seen amongst the youth in the last 5 to 6 years has been crazy. Been crazy.
It's definitely been on the rise. Like, I would say the LRT was sort of like a big turning point where people were like piping up, like, oh snap, young people need to start talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And I think like they really set the tone. They were so good, and it really they showed that young people aren't here to play. Like, they're ready to be engaged. I think that's always the thing. You know, millennials are, they never vote and blah blah blah. But I think that they've proven that they are invested and they are voting strategically.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. And the fact that and again, this was hit home a lot during the actual debate. I actually got to have a couple people from Vision Brampton on the show a few weeks ago. The fact that the 18 to 24 age demo within Canada will be the largest voting bloc in the upcoming election is crazy, because more than likely, if they're not informed, they're not going to vote.
I feel like that's something that's been missing in this whole election campaign so far, is that the millennial, this is the peak strength.
Yeah.
This election, the next election, if y'all don't figure it out, now you're never going to figure it out.
Absolutely.
I mean that in the most earnest way possible. Like, please vote. Decide on issues that it's going to impact the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you're going to get that house or not get that house in the next 25 years, it's because of this election that's coming up. And I guarantee it, because of the policies that are going to come out
100%.
and how they're going to impact your life. Yeah. Please think about the things that are coming out. And I know this is like a nerd talking about like, oh, the policies and the issues. But no, it definitely will impact your life. So please tune in and figure out what exactly the point is.
It's okay. Yeah. Vijay Kumar is another nerd about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I like, obviously, talking politics. And I think the Canadian political zeitgeist is a little bit interesting, because I learned recently that climate change was, I think, the number 2 highest priority among voters.
That's real.
And I think there were a few things, particularly in Ontario, with Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau's level of celebrity, and the Hassan Minaj interview of Justin Trudeau, which was a PR disaster. I
really?
think.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet. And I'm a huge Hassan Minaj fan. I think he's fantastic at what he does.
You look like him a little
bit.
Do
I?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I should probably take the compliment. But I really Patriot Act. I do sort of, because I'm not as deep into politics as some of the people in this room right now. But Patriot Act is my gateway in sort of understanding what's going on. For example, with the India election that took place, I had no idea. And after that episode, I felt really up to date in regards to some of the conversations I could now have with my father-in-law, because he always asked me about Indian politics. But I haven't seen it, and so what's the issue? Like, did Trudeau just not come across well?
Well, it's sort of, there's one segment of people haven't watched it where he talks about the arms deal with Saudi Arabia, and like the Canadian government's approach, and the businesses here that are arms businesses, which
London,
governments,
Ontario.
which governments and which agencies they partner with when they're actually selling these arms, and is there any accountability and ethical lens built in when those transactions happen? As much as Canada likes to champion itself as like, oh, we're the world's greatest and best, well, that's a time to like show your morals, and we're in a ... phase. So it was interesting to see the type of answer that Prime Minister Trudeau gave. I think it was a pragmatic one, because yes, as much as we would like things to turn right or left in a certain way, we are in a transition phase of like finally cementing our foreign policy, and we're seeing what's happening with China, for example, as well, when we are having a backbone saying, oh, Hong Kong, we need to protect those rights. Yes, what you're doing with the extradition treaty and treating your own citizens quite poorly is something that we are speaking against. It's easy to make that position because it doesn't involve our own affairs. This one actually does. So it's very easy. It's very hard for him to kind of say, how do I position this in a way where I sound as elegant as I would to say some other country, like, yeah, you guys are so far left on this, but when we're on that particular issue, we're kind of far left on that. So we need to kind of rein that in. But I would like to hear Nikita's take on this. Like, what exactly? Because she'll say it way more elegantly than I would. With much
Nikita
better
Brown.
Context.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm more elegant than you, but I would say that I think, again, he thought it was going to be like sort of a softball interview, like, Hassan Minhaj is a funny guy.
Yeah,
and that just wasn't the case. He touched on some really, really deep topics that, I mean, I don't know if they briefed him beforehand. I'm sure they had to give some sort of briefing. So I was kind of surprised that it didn't go that well, because most of these shows, when they're inviting you on, they'll give you some sort of idea of what they're talking about. He just didn't seem prepared.
Well, especially because for the most part, Trudeau in sort of the U.S. realm, like in the U.S. media, he is looked upon very positively versus Trump.
Among the left-leaning U.S. citizens.
Exactly. And now to see something like this happen, where a comedian who is man, he came up through the Daily Show, like he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
It's tough now.
He contextualizes immigration and sort of like a history of politics that was widely ignored by the reporters in the past, because they were very Anglo-Saxon, so their viewpoint of those policies and sort of government positions wasn't fully understood. And we're kind of facing that in Canada as well, where we have a lot of diverse communities bringing their own politics into different things, and that context of certain situations kind of gets misunderstood or not completely understood in the lens. So I think we're at a very bright time in politics now, where everything is micro contextualized, and you can understand that context through entertainers, because fortunately for us, that a lot of the diaspora of various religions, races, and cultures are now in media, and they're kind of saying the stories that need to be heard. So people, if they really want to engage with a certain story, they can find the nitty-gritty of it and make their point.
And I think he's got, Hassan Minhaj has such a strong millennial audience, so I'm interested to see, coming out of that, how millennials, as the largest voting bloc, feel about Trudeau.
Yeah. And one thing that I was really happy about with that interview was the climate stuff in particular, because I think, internationally, a lot of people, assume Trudeau and sort of the Canadian Liberals are the most progressive when it comes to strict and disciplined climate policy. But how can you declare a climate emergency and then approve a pipeline, a day after, and people are going to say, this is too absolutist. He's doing his best. But if climate change is our second highest priority as an electorate, you have to be absolutist on that topic.
So what do you say to former Finance Minister Joe Oliver for saying that climate change could actually benefit Canada overall? Like, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm not in agreement with him. I'm also I'm also not for it, but it's interesting to note that I'm reading this article right now on Global News that talks about how Moody's Analytics made headlines because they were assessing sort of a panel on climate change, and they said that the heavy cost for that comes from climate change may not affect Canada too much based on where we're positioned currently in the world. And that to me just adds more fire to the argument around why climate change is not an issue.
So we just let the rest of the world burn.
Yeah.
Canada's good.
I mean, it's so interesting to see that come out, because I think we've all been hit hard with the fact that climate change is here, and it's pretty evident too. Like, look how cold it is outside now. Yeah. Like, it's insane how quickly that changed.
Look how crazy hot summer was.
Summer was hot. Look at the bad winter we had.
Absolutely.
The winter was horrible this year.
One. Yeah,
according to the Farmer's Almanac.
If you
look
consider
at Muskoka, they're flooded for half of the spring.
And if you consider that Canada has one of the largest freshwater reserves in the world, climate change technically would benefit Canada from a market perspective, because we'll have a hot commodity, but I think that's a short-sighted view, because if from an economics perspective, if you have limited resources, you can't have self-sustaining markets. So
it wouldn't. That's such a crazy theory. I'm laughing because I'm just like, that's bizarre that somebody would think that. We need the rest of the world to survive, too. We can't just be an island.
Just because we're at the best spot and we have the most water in the world, and we could possibly, if climate does change to a point where it is at a changing point, we're already 1 degree up, so we're at the tipping point right now. This is the point the scientists are telling us, like, please try not to get to this point, but we're here.
Oh, we totally are.
And we're dealing with it. But at the same time, if we don't have a conversation, there has to be a transition. Is it going to be a Brexit transition where, hooray, Boris Johnson, he's going to take us to the promised land, and now he's not even, getting all the way to actually, if he's going to have a snap election, if he's going to stay prime minister, and if Britain actually wants Brexit or not. I think climate change is sort of that sort of topic where people have their mind made up, but somewhere along the line, an article comes out, or they think, wait, but how's it going to hit my pockets? Oh, but I'm also trying to think about my generations up ahead. So I think millennials are caught in that sort of whirlwind of, like, I want to think about the world, but I'm also broke. So I think that's a very weird dynamic to be in, because we are the change makers, but we're also very challenged in the world.
We also still love stores like Forever 21 and fast fashion and all these things.
Xiaomi phones.
Xiaomi. No.
We want the latest
not
technology.
Xiaomi, though,
I think, obviously it's going to have to be a real change in everybody's life. Like, everybody has to reevaluate their whole life. The question is, are we ready to do that?
Silver lining, at least both sides of the political aisle in Canada believe in climate change, and we're not like the United States. Maybe Bernier is the only sort of...
I think the People's Party is the only one that flat out said that it's not real.
But conservatives are saying, climate change is real, and that's the conversation. Great, thanks for coming up. But there's no policy after that.
I mean, Andrew Scheer, he doesn't believe in a carbon tax, but he believes in technology being the answer. I mean, at least we're getting to a point where we're debating the policies.
For sure. We better speed that up.
So there's an article in Narcity where they covered a study that the University of Montreal did regarding which Canadian provinces care the most about climate change.
Interesting.
And let's know, PEI apparently is the one that cares the most, which makes sense, which is fascinating because they're the ones surrounded by the most water.
Yeah, their economy depends on it so much.
There was one quote, let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it goes. Interestingly, when asked if Canadians believed in climate change would affect them personally, the majority of them believe that it would only affect them a small bit and not at all. However, 60% of the people in Quebec felt that it would affect them personally to some considerable degree. In Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick, more than 50% also felt that they would be affected. So it's interesting. You have people that are really on the fence as to whether it's going to affect them or not. Maybe it could be. And is this because? Sure, we've had a cold winter. Sure, we've seen floods. Yeah. Sure, that we've seen abnormally hot temperatures. Yeah, but. Does it have to get more extreme for people to actually care? I think so. I think people aren't going to believe until it's happening. Because then it forces people to make real changes in their lives, and they're not going to want to do that until the last second. But I think, geography reflects how people feel, because when there is a hurricane, definitely the people in Nova Scotia and PEI are hit most, right? Ontario, there's not too much. We've had a few tornadoes, standard for the summer and fall, but we don't really get hit with a lot of too extreme weather, right? So, I mean, what province believes in climate change the least? Let me see. I think it's Alberta. Okay. Oh, yeah. I could have guessed that. Figure. Over in Alberta, Saskatchewan, this was considerably lower with only 7... wait, hold on.
But it was interesting because they got hit with the fires a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Fort McMurray.
Yeah. Oh, actually, this is fascinating. New Brunswick said instead of trying to stop climate change, we should focus on adapting. 31% of them said that.
Well, we are in mitigation. I think Peel's doing a great job. Ontario's trying to... Well, the previous government was very gung-ho about making things happen, but their partnerships, and I think end of the day, people look for execution of policies to actually have a net effect. The previous government, if you look, they had a very progressive idea of what climate change mitigation should be like, and meeting the Paris Accord and having those sort of conversations, but it was a lot of rhetoric without a lot of action coming into fruition. Or if the deals were made, for example, with Samsung and and they get made fun of by the other side of the aisle, how could you justify spending that much money and not having a net result or actually some sort of a collective decision where we can see, okay, this is some place like a Tesla moment for the grid being changed into renewables 100%. If that moment happens for Canada, like it has for a lot of European countries, Norway is really pushing for it.
Yeah.
And it has a climate quite similar to Canada. But they are going to be carbon neutral, I think, in the next 10 or 20 years. They've actually geared their policies towards it, and they're actually executing a plan that works. So if Canada does that, I think all the politicians and policymakers will start to realize that the politics behind supporting climate change will be easier to defend because there's a suitable and a guaranteed track record in Canada. That's where the execution part, by any party that claims that we have the answer, and if they don't execute it, that's where the politics gets involved, and they're like, well, you're not the party to lead.
But do you see, because as of right now, I think a lot of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, and it's funny, it's not funny, but we're seeing actually on the screen behind Nikita just information about Hurricane Dorian that was taking place. Apparently it did affect the Atlantic. Nova Scotia pretty drastically. We have the Liberals who realize there's a climate change problem. We have the Conservatives. They somewhat realize that there's a climate change problem.
Yeah, they're weaker on policy, but they recognize it. Yeah.
They recognize it. If by chance we find ourselves with a minority government,
yo, knock on wood. That's the vision for me.
But if we do, does that mean that, do you see a united front when it comes to climate change, or do you see us staying status quo? Because right now, I feel like a lot of Canadians are acting like a lot of Brampton-mans when it comes to, hey, unless it gets very serious, I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah. And that is a sign of massive privilege, in my opinion.
100%, man.
I think, like, here's my issue with focusing on governments as the answer to all of this. It's, one, it's very bureaucratic. Two, it's 4 to 8 years. You have commitments that could actually last. Look at Trump, removing himself from the Paris agreements. I don't think any government is really meeting their Paris commitments. We have the wrong stakeholders at the table, and we should be talking to the highest emitters, the companies, the Huawei's, the people who actually transgress. We should try to create markets and commitments and agreements among them, rather than trying to have this removed discussion with representatives who will then try to enact the legislation, and even then it's not even guaranteed. It's a bad system.
Yeah. Nikita, thoughts?
Yeah, I would say to that vein, I mean, we always say consumer buying power is so important, but I feel like consumers are weak. We want we want the shiny new stuff, right? So I feel like if we force corporations to bend to our will, they probably would, but I don't know if we have strong enough people to do that, right? Like, we also love our stuff, and the production of all of these things that we have, that's a big part of this problem.
Sorry, just one last point from this Narcity article, because they summarize this pretty much towards the end. So I'm reading it verbatim. Across Canada, a study estimated that around 12% of people do not believe the Earth is warming. So those are probably your flat earthers. Sorry if you're one of those people. On top of this, the university's research also suggests that 36% of Canadians do not believe the Earth is warming due to human activity. And 50% overall do not think that they will be personally affected by climate change. That's fascinating, man.
But I think we see this with so many issues in the world, right? People live in their bubble, and they're like, if it doesn't affect me, then I'm not going to care. So it's like, what does it take? What is it going to take for people to take it seriously? I don't know. It's kind of scary because humans, we don't have the best track record of making the best decisions all the time. So I feel like it's got to be something more extreme.
I remember climate change for me became very apparent when An Inconvenient Truth came out.
Yes.
With Gore, Al Gore.
Yeah.
And then he came out with number 2. Then that Leonardo DiCaprio documentary came out a few years ago. Yeah. I remember my wife was watching it, and I tuned in with her, and it was actually fascinating because he was talking a lot about climate change, but at the same time he was filming The Revenant, and there was a scene in The Revenant they had filmed, and then they had gone back there, and the water levels weren't as high, so they couldn't film there.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy to see how drastically it all changed for that one shoot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, you have these spurts where everyone's a tree hugger, and then all of a sudden they just, wipe their hands clean and move on.
It's honestly, it becomes this conversation piece where rhetoric around cost, right? well, if pipelines are built, there's a cost to that as well. So if we change the grid, there's a cost to that as well. But we tend to have those conversation pieces about cost only when it's an environmental issue. When it's an infrastructure issue with anything else that has to do with old energy, and like with coal, natural gas, or anything with fossil fuel, then it's looking as, it's going to create jobs. They try to the framing of that conversation is very different compared to renewables. Renewables is like, it's hoopla. But now we're seeing renewables are working, but they don't see it as like, that's the next move. If third world countries, quote unquote, I shouldn't even use that term, but if countries like India and China are investing in renewables more than places like Canada and the US, it says something. They're seeing the math on that, and they're seeing it's a better bet for us to bet on renewables now, because they're feeling the pinch right now because of climate policies that weren't in place. Their water tables are gone. Their agriculture and sort of growth patterns, they're diminished. Yeah. They have to feed people, get water. They're now encroaching on other countries and other territories to collect water, essentially. And that's
a scary time.
It's a scary time, but we're not hit by that because we got 97% of the water. So we're like, we got all the water. You can come here and get all the water. So we don't see that effect.
That's part of the problem with some of these surveys too, because like real talk here, ultimately anyone's going to be like, yeah, I believe that climate change is happening, that it's a real thing. But like when you ask people what they're willing to do about it, the answer is probably silence. Like they're not going to change their habits.
I still remember, what was it like growing up where they told you not to use hairspray because it was affecting the ozone layer or something like that? Like, so much of... I feel like we were all given plenty of warning growing up, and we just ruined it.
I don't know. I think like to the point about China and India, I mean, on a per capita basis, they're not polluting nearly as much as us or the United States, but in absolute terms, they are. And China and India, their point of view is, hey, listen, we're going to invest in coal-powered energy because you guys did it for so many years, and now we're sort of facing the industrial.
Honestly, going to Delhi, and not even being able to breathe because how polluted that air was a big.
India has one of the largest solar plants now in the world. So does China now. I think they're neck and neck with that. So why are they doing it and we're not doing it? Because they see that this is, we're finding a way to have renewable energy and become energy independent. I think every country and nation state wants to do that. So Canada has all these resources. We were like the innovators in geothermal for such a long time. We just kind of left that technology alone for whatever reason. But other countries have picked up the slack that we've kind of left.
I'm of the camp as well that if we want to make decisive action towards a more sort of energy efficient, particularly carbon free future, we have to have a future that includes nuclear energy. I think the problem with a lot of the environmentalists, the rhetoric of the Green New Deal and all of that is they don't make room for nuclear, and they don't recognize that renewables just don't have a capacity factor that can rival natural gas and just fossil fuels in general.
Guys, this is a super deep conversation.
It is.
And I really want to continue it. I did mention before we got to commercial break that we were going to talk about some Bramptonist articles. Let's talk about one that really stood out quickly, and then we'll end this segment on a high note. 25 places that will give you free food on your birthday.
Amazing.
One of the best articles ever. So
let's do the top 5, and let's see if we all agree. So number 5 is, and Nikita, did you write this one?
I don't remember if I wrote it, but
no, you did write it. You did write it.
I did write it. Honestly, we wrote it forever ago, and we just re-updated it because it's such a popular article.
No.
Let's just scrutinize it here on the air, and then just because I want to end on a happy note, because all this climate change stuff.
Bring down the room every time.
No, but it was fascinating, and you know what? It's a good segue because we talked about earlier on Ryan's show, but Sauga 960 is doing debates.
Yeah.
We start on September 29th. We go to October 18th.
Yes, we just shot a promo.
We just shot a promo. Look out. Thummin and Ryan, Thummin from The Element and Ryan from the Ryan Gertrude Show shot a promo. Ameek and myself shot one.
I don't think that one's going to air, but we'll see.
We'll see. But one thing we won't have the Candace debate on is the top 25 places where you get free food. Number 5, a Cinnabon. Free mini Cinnabon or Mocha Latte Chill. You won't know until you get the email. So, would you guys go to Cinnabon for your birthday?
What's the last time you went to Cinnabon? Other than the airport. I feel like when I'm at the airport, it's like the thing to do. Or when
really? At Pearson?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or if I was at the old Union Station. before the revamp happened, the that area was popping right next to the McDonald's. If you remember, like the old layout Union. Was popping.
Cinnabon just reminds you of Shoppers World.
That's the thing. I only go to Cinnabon when I finish shopping at Forever 21 and I check my chamois phone and I'm like, you know what? I could go for a Cinnabon.
It just brings it all together.
So never.
That's number 5. Number 4 is Buffalo Wild Wing. Free dessert, eh? Buffalo Wild Wing. Buffalo Wild Wing, if you ever go there, you got to have the mango habanero wings.
Blazing hot challenge. So a blazing champion. Have you done
I've never been a blazing champion, but the mango habanero wings,
it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. It's a ting for sure.
I'm a vegetarian, so I'm.
Since when? Since ever?
12 years, 13
really?
years.
I think he's like the low-key environmentalist guy.
I know, he seems like it. Yeah. But, so Nikita, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Boston Pizza free birthday dessert. They give you the brownie, don't they? At Boston Pizza?
Can't remember, honestly. I haven't been to some of these places. This year on my birthday I was away, so I didn't get any free stuff.
Really, eh? This is actually a really helpful list for next year.
The biggest finesse is going to Mandarin or...
but that's not even on the list, Nikita.
Wait, don't you have to bring like 5 people together?
I'm giving you the Brampton finesse. So this is a Brampton finesse. If you're short of people, just be like, fam, if people see walking in, like, listen, you're having a good time, I'm having a good time. Let's just sit together.
Man, those lineups for the free Mandarin during Canada Day. Oh
I
my
didn't even
God.
try. Like that's instant death.
That's the
in
new
my
Boxing
opinion.
Day.
But shout outs to Mandarin, Brampton business.
Yeah,
killing
absolutely.
It.
They really are doing well for themselves.
Wait, is that Brampton specific?
Yeah, they're in Brampton.
Started in Brampton,
Headquartered in
yeah.
Brampton.
I didn't even know that.
They're a big member of the bird trade.
Wow.
Yeah, big member of the bird trade. Number 2, for all of our health fanatics, you get a free voucher. You get a voucher for a free drink at Booster Juice. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm a big mind over matcha guy, so now I know.
That's the one I would actually use. Like Cinnabon, not going to happen. I'm sorry, but Booster Juice, heck yeah.
But Cinnabon, you only get the small one, right?
You get the
Free
small
mini,
one, but that's
okay.
still like eating like how many carbs?
It's a lot.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
It's a lot. And number 1 is a free 2.5 ounce scoop on your birthday from Baskin Robbins.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's in Scoops Ahoy all the way.
Yeah, that's the one I'm going in for.
But there's a catch. You have to sign up for the Baskin Robbins Club 31. So there's Forever 21 and there's Club 31. That's a club I'm in right now.
Me too. I'm about to be next February.
Okay, I'm already at Club 31 and approaching Club 32.
Do I get 2 scoops if I'm actually 31 though? Like, because
they should do that. They should do that. I wonder why it's 31. Is that because it's like a special number for them or what?
I don't actually know.
That's interesting. Well, peeps,
we'll Google that later.
Yeah, we should. That's a whole new theories on Baskin Robbins Club 31. Guys, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory. It was a lot of fun. Let's just go around the horn. Maybe Vijay will start with you. If anyone wants to connect with you outside of this show, where should they reach out?
At the Kumar Effect on Instagram and Twitter. I mean...
Are you ever going to get back into writing? Because you've done some writing for Now and a bunch of other publications.
Yeah.
Bramptonist too.
Bramptonist as well,
yeah, definitely. And I do love writing. I mean, I've been writing a little bit, like doing the political thing. But, usually music journalism is sort of where my passion lies. So I want to get back into that and I might do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic articles. Nikita, people want to connect with you. It's pretty self-explanatory, but do share.
Yeah, Bramptonist.com or at the Bramptonist on Twitter and Instagram.
Excellent. And last but not least, Ameek, the freeloader.
I don't need to shine, man. I think you should, if anybody should spend their time, go on the Bramptonist. Check out the stuff that they're putting out. Like if for Brampton, for the culture of the city, I think Brampton does an amazing thing. So thank you, Nikita, for doing that. I've thanked you before, but I think I can't thank you enough because I know a lot more about Brampton because of your publications and what your editorial discretion has done. So thank you for doing that for our city. Thank you for.
Nikita, how much did you pay him? Seriously?
Right?
No.
Don't tell anybody about the 200 I slipped in for this. Thank you so much. Honestly, that's like the best compliment. That's what we're hustling to do is hear people say that that's what they use the website for.
Honestly, we have to all support local websites, local publications, local radio stations, because we are the voice, right? There isn't a lot of voices out there. So, Brampton is Sauga 960, everything. People want to listen to Big Talk, man. What time is that? Tell the listeners.
10, 11. I hate plugging myself, but yeah, Brampton is all day, every day.
That's it. That's
But on the weekends, on Saturdays.
10 to 11, Big
10 to 11,
Talk.
Big Talk,
Ameek is doing his thing. Nikita will probably be on the show, so you can listen
Stay
to
tuned for that in another 3-4 months.
Yeah.
When we come back from commercial break, again, guys, thanks so much. When we come back from commercial break, I'm going to be joined by author Imaan Gill, and we're going to talk about his Kickstarter for Browntown Diaries here on New Theory Radio. And we are back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Sauga 960 AM, the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and I'm super excited now to be joined by a young and up-and-coming author here based in the Brampton area. He just actually launched his own Kickstarter for a brand new book that he's looking to launch called the Browntown Diaries, which I'll provide a brief synopsis. It introduces us to the crazy, weird, and just plain funny life of Karen, a teenager trying to survive a summer with his brown family in a brown town. He spends his summer on awkward family trips, learning Indian negotiating skills, aka extortion, and keeping track of his grandpa's gang activities. What else would you expect when you're living in a brown family? He makes sure to keep track of everything that happens in his diary, no matter how embarrassing. After all, what our diaries are for. And he is a very bright high school student living in Brampton, and I'm super excited to have him on the show. It's Imaan Gill. Imaan, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me.
This is fantastic. I think it's a very awesome concept. I love the idea behind it. I think it's very disruptive, has a very comedic element to it. And I'm actually a good friend of your father's, Sonny, who actually runs the IFSA, the Indian Film Festival here within, or the International Film Festival of South Asia here in Brampton. So when he told me about this idea, I was intrigued right away. I got to ask you, what's the inspiration behind Browntown Diaries?
Yeah, so I think definitely the inspiration, it originally came from personal experiences. Like the sort of like the one point where it all started was a summer vacation, a family trip that we took back in the start of summer about 2 years ago. And we went to this cottage country, we're surrounded by all these vacationers, and just seeing like all these weird, like unique elements that our family brought. Like we were packing literal sweaters for a summer vacation, acting like it's winter out there. We were having all these like overprotective elements from our parents where me and my sister, we want to go swimming in the water, but they practically have us on leashes, like worried that we're going to be drowning. And so it was all of these elements that sort of like we thought that, hey, wait a minute, there's definitely something in here. This could definitely be a story. I know that I'm not the only one who's went through these experiences.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely a universal thing that I think that every South Asian and even beyond youth can definitely relate to. So that's sort of where we got the idea to do something with this and to definitely put this out as a story.
I love it, man, because it's one of those things that I find that you joke around with your either siblings, your cousins, or even your friends when you think about weird stuff that happens in a family, especially when you grow up in a South Asian household. I can definitely relate. There's always funny things that happen that always get you questioning why or is this really necessary? Why make it a diary? Is that something that you did growing up?
No, so it's not something that I did growing up, but I think it was definitely because the whole concept of it being like very personal for me, I thought that the best sort of way to do it would be in a sort of more like realistic type of fashion, so that it's not some sort of made up story. It is real, so we should have like a real character sort of just giving his day-to-day recounts on these events as if they were actually happening in real life. Yeah,
and that's what I love about it, because you have your main character, which is Karen. I think the entire, I'm assuming the entire perspective is from his lens.
Yes, yeah, so it's a first-person perspective.
That's
like
awesome.
Diary.
And then I love how you touch on things that I can definitely relate to, like Indian negotiating skills. I think we've all seen a father, a mother, or even an aunt or uncle being in a negotiating scenario when they're trying to get the best deal possible. We do sometimes get the rep of being very frugal, so I think that's a good way to touch on that. I'm very intrigued about his grandpa's gang activities. Is this stuff that relates from maybe the grandpa's life back home?
No, so actually it's just sort of more here. It's like her grandpa, he's like always just like out and about in the town. Like he doesn't like to be sort of cooped up at home. He always likes to be out and about, with his friends, whether it's like sitting at a park, a gazebo, playing cards and so on. So it's sort of a play on that, imagining that, what else is he doing when we're not watching? Like who knows what he's doing out there? Yeah. So it's sort of a play on that, sort of his activities out there.
Well, when I was actually reading that, I was thinking about this one Uncle G, or this one grandpa, I guess, that in my area, we used to call him the mayor. because he would be outside in his corta, just hanging out, overseeing the area, not doing much, but just kind of observing. He'd be the one that would know who was moving, who was leaving. My dad would always make an effort to go talk to him because he just felt like he had to because he was an elder. And we always, amongst our family, we always like, man, that guy's the one that runs the street secretly. We have no idea.
Yeah. So I think definitely there's like elements of that, sort of like being that overseer, knowing all the business of the area. That's definitely there.
How long have you been working on this concept for?
Yeah. So originally I wrote the text about 2 years ago.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. It's like over my summer vacation. That was originally when.
So it's an actual diary.
Yeah. So it was also like really truly like my actual diary. So yeah, I wrote it about 2 years ago. And then from there, we sent it out to various people, from my English teacher to like journalists at CBC, Toronto Star.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah, and like everyone absolutely loved it. And we even like had then afterwards a professional editor to come and look over the manuscript to get everything edited down. And then from there, the only thing that was sort of just stopping us was illustrations, because we wanted to add illustrations, to add cartoons, to also like really give it some more flavor. And so that's just over the past 2 years, we were just trying to get in touch with illustrators. We like just weren't able to find quite the right person. But now we've finally been able to find a really awesome professional illustrator.
Excellent.
And so now everything's in place. So now we're definitely just looking to get the book out as soon as possible.
So is it like a novel, or is it like a picture book?
I know. So yeah, so it's a novel. So it's 200 pages.
Yeah.
And then the novel, like the words are sort of like augmented, enhanced by cartoons. So there's 200 pages and then over 100 cartoons spread across throughout the text.
That's amazing, man, because you're just in high school. I think the fact that you're written 200 pages of worth of a story is definitely fascinating. I never was, admittedly, when I was in high school, I wasn't a big English guy in regards to, I did enjoy sort of reading books at the time, but when it came to writing essays, there was a sense of discipline that I never really had, which is why probably I like talking so much. How did you sort of manage that aspect of it while you were studying in high school? Because you're gearing up for university now, right?
Yeah, so I definitely am gearing up for university now. Yeah, I think back then, like I said, because originally it was sort of over my summer, so I had a bit more free time there. And I think a big part of why I was able to balance it so well is that, I didn't really have to like think too hard about what I was writing, because like I've said, it was definitely personal. It was definitely things that I've been through. So I found the whole writing process, it was like very smooth. It sort of just, the words flowed right out of me. So it was overall just like a very smooth process that I was able to get through, and it never really felt like I was doing work. It was something that I enjoyed, something that I wanted to do. So I was always able to find time for it.
It's funny. I'm assuming, and you probably can't see on the air, obviously, but that's probably the main character.
Yeah, so that is the main character, Karan.
He does kind of look like you.
Yeah, so it is definitely, yeah. So the main character, as well as all of the other characters, it's definitely based on exaggerated versions of my family.
Yeah.
And so you see that in the cartoons also. There's some resemblance.
Have you told any of them that, hey, you're going to be a character in my book? And have they been okay with it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, they've known since, like, I started writing. So for over 2 years now, they've been, like, well aware that they're in the book. And yeah, I think not all of them are like quite aware to what capacity and like perhaps what jokes we're making about them, but they've definitely been supportive and like they're definitely excited.
But that's the great thing about being able to write. To your point, I guess the writing to this is becoming very easy to you because you're passionate about it. Plus, it's very easy to relate to a lot of things that are going on. But some of the best stories are the ones that you can take out of your real life. And even if you can base characters on people that actually exist, it's very easy to write for them, I guess, in regards to kind of mapping that out.
Yeah, I think definitely, because then there isn't really like the aspect of having to like come up with characters or having to like sort of make up situations.
Yeah.
Because when everything's grounded in reality, I think it just makes it that much easier to write. And I think it also makes it that much more relatable, that much more comedic, because the fact is that these are situations that actually happen. It's not something that I'm just trying to come up with off the top of my head. So then it adds an element that really helps to make the story that much more hard-hitting.
It says in your bio that you write code and you play guitar, which is fantastic. It's good that you have different skills, and you have both the arts and sort of scientific tech skills at the same time. Very helpful in sort of this age and climate. I was going to ask why the Kickstarter? Like, what drove you to want to do that? And have you what's been the success so far?
Yeah, so I think the Kickstarter, it was definitely, since we were sort of looking to like get it published, since we're in the process of publishing right now, we were looking to do a Kickstarter to help sort of cover some of those costs, such as the illustrations, which I mentioned, and things like graphic designing, the book cover design, printing, that whole process. So the Kickstarter will really help to sort of like cover those costs. And that's definitely, it's a great way also to just sort of get the word out in general, because I feel like there's sort of brand associated with Kickstarter where it's a place where a lot of awesome projects happen.
100%.
And I really definitely want to be a part of that. And so far, the response has been just absolutely amazing. We've been just about 5 days, and we're already at almost 30%. So the support, it's been absolutely overwhelming. I definitely want to thank all of our backers, just everyone for supporting. We're absolutely just so grateful. It's been amazing so far.
It's great. You have 36 backers already. You still have quite some time left to still support, so definitely go do that. We'll provide the link in the podcast bio. And yeah, to your point, you are about 30% of your goal. What I also love about sort of you taking the Kickstarter approach is it really makes the person who likes the story really feel a part of the journey with you in regards to making it come to fruition. Was that a big want on your end as well?
Yeah, I think that is definitely, it's another like very unique, cool part of Kickstarter that they definitely feel like it's not just like final end product that they're buying. They're definitely a part of our creative journey. They're helping us along the way. They'll get to see all of our updates as everything's going. And then even in terms of things like the rewards, it's a lot more personal where like you'll get like signed copies of the books. You have the opportunity to even at the highest tier like have a video conference with me. So I think that's definitely where like when you go a Kickstarter route, you can have a lot more personal elements to it. You can have a lot more creativity in terms of how you sort of interact with your readers.
Yeah, and the good thing about Kickstarter is that I find, because I had a lot of friends that have done that for many different products, is it's almost proof of concept. You can see, okay, am I really on to something, or is this something totally out of whack? I think the fact that you've already hit 30% of your goal in less than a week, I think is fantastic. I think there's definitely proof of concept there. Do you hope, you're kind of in this transition phase in your life as you approach university, as you approach, what you want to do next? Do you hope to make writing almost a full-time job?
No, so I think as my full-time job, it would be like, I've also been writing code since I was in about grade 6.
So you've been writing a lot.
Writing code, writing words.
In general.
Yeah, just writing in general. So I think that's always been something that I want to like pursue as a career. I want to go to university for computer science and to ultimately get some sort of job in that field.
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think that always like writing has always been a hobby of mine that I've always like loved writing, whether it's at school or at home. So I think definitely like on the side, that's something I'll always continue to do is to continue to write more books as well.
Yeah, and I think writing is the type of skill that you can apply to anything, right? And I think it's fantastic that you're taking this chance and you're actually releasing your own book at the age of 17, because I think ultimately this will pretty much allow you to adapt to any situation that involves, writing something in the future for, a full-time job, or writing something, maybe for involving your dad's festival. I think having that skill to be able to communicate will take you far no matter what.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like writing, communication is such a huge part of our world, and writing is such a critical way. So I think I'm like lucky that I've always just sort of like found it really easy. I've always really enjoyed writing.
Okay, a couple last things before we conclude. I've noticed, again, with the humor that's involved in the story, do you have any influences, like kind of outside of the characters? Like, obviously this type of humor, when I read it, reminds me of, a Russell Peters or, something that you would see with like a Just Rain as an example. Were any of them influences to you when it came to formulating what the story's about?
Yeah, so I think that perhaps. I think like a lot of it. So I have like obviously I've watched like Just Rain. I've watched Russell Peters. So I think like maybe in the back of my head they were influences, but I think a lot of it is also like this was sort of just my personal writing style. That when I originally started off, I wasn't really like trying super hard to think of like a specific way I wanted to write it. It just sort of flowed out naturally. So I think this was sort of just like the sarcastic sort of like jokey style was just something that naturally came to me. And I think it was naturally just like very original and true to myself.
Were you always like a comedy guy?
No, so like, in real life, like. Yeah, I don't think I'm not even like overly that jokey, overly comedy, but I think that in writing, like that's one way that I was able to express it really well through this book.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on New Theory Radio. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with the Kickstarter. If people want to connect with you and they want to know how they can support your project here, what's the best way?
Yeah, so I think the best way would be you can follow Browntown Diaries on Instagram. You can also go to our website at browntowndiaries.com. As well, just give us a quick Google search and you can go on our Kickstarter and be sure to support us there.
Awesome. That's Imaan Gill. He's definitely onto something with the Browntown Diaries. Go support that on Kickstarter. We'll include the link in the podcast bio as well. And yes, thanks so much for coming on, man. Hoping to get you back on when the book's ready to be released.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
This is actually the point of the show where we conclude, but I wanted to give a huge thank you to all my guests here today, including Nikita Brown from the Bramptonist, Vijai Kumar, formerly of Brampton Says, as well as Ameek Singh from Big Talk. Go listen to Big Talk each and every Saturday. And a special thanks to Imaan Gill. Go support his Kickstarter. We'll have his information in the bio of the podcast version. And a big shout out to his father, Sonny Gill, who runs IFSA, the International Film Film Festival of South Asia, a fantastic event that takes place each and every week. On next week's show, we are going to talk all things Mississauga Music Awards. Yes, the Mississauga Music Awards are coming up, and I'm very excited to have a bunch of nominees from the Mississauga Music Awards joining me here on New Theory Radio. So that don't be on the lookout for that. As well, if you missed today's episode, it will be re-airing tomorrow from 8 to 10 p.m. As well, the podcast version will be available tomorrow as well on iTunes, Spotify, and at newtheoryradio.com. As well, if you want to connect with the show, it's at New Theory Radio across Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you want to connect with me, it's at Nav Nanwa on Instagram and at nnanwa on Twitter. And again, we said this earlier, but Sauga 960 is doing debates for the upcoming federal election. They begin on September 29th. So keep it locked, as information about those debates will be released within the next few days. Thanks so much for tuning in, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.
You're listening to News Talk Sauga 960. Also streaming live on sauga960am.ca.